Ça va bien? That's as far as my French goes. Hi, everyone. My name is Eze Vidra. I usually say easy like Sunday morning, and I'm the head of Google for Entrepreneurs Europe and Campus London. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today in Nantes. I've never been to Nantes, and it's only an hour away on a flight from London, so close, but yet so far. Today, I want to share with you a little bit what we think makes startup hubs successful and what we are doing as Google to help support startup ecosystems around the world. And I'm going to focus on London a little bit more, but hopefully you can take these lessons and apply them to your own local startup ecosystem, whether you're based in Nantes or Paris or wherever you are, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end. So a little bit about me. I've been around in all these places, mainly that end with .com. I've started companies, I've worked in startups and worked with big companies, and that all of this formed a little bit what I'm doing now, and we'll talk about it too. So people in Silicon Valley think that there's something in the water there. That's the only place where you can be innovative and create a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm not saying it's everyone, but there's a common belief that companies can only be successful, like the Googles or Facebooks or Microsoft if you're from Silicon Valley. And actually, in Europe, although we see ourselves as this sometimes, I don't know if you get the joke, the number of deals, venture capital deals and startups in Europe is very close to that one of the US. And if you go deeper, actually you can see that US startups on average in the last 5 years have been funded 5 to 10 times more than European startups. So we actually managed to do quite a lot with much less capital. And these are just some of the companies that are actually disrupting their industries, not just playing at a high level, but are also like beating world-class companies that are based in Silicon Valley. And there's also some really good French examples. I think that we all refer to Criteo now as a huge success story, coming out of France. So if you look at the startup ecosystem report, done by Startup Genome, it's a little bit old now, from 2012. 7 of the top 20 startup ecosystems are actually based in Europe. And today, I want to talk to you about what we should do to be more like Silicon Valley, but actually not trying to recreate Silicon Valley, but create really successful local startup ecosystems wherever we are. And what I'm going to argue is that we need to stop obsessing about creating the valley and focus more about creating bridges between these little valleys. So we need bridges, not valleys. So let's take London as an example. I've been based in London for the last 6 years and been very involved in the London startup ecosystem. I think London has the top 3 things that you need to be a successful startup ecosystem, or the trifecta of startup success. We have access to talent. We know it's some of the top universities in the world based in London, a couple of them down the road in Cambridge and Oxford. We also have access to capital. The city of London is a huge financial center. There's lots of capital there, but more and more, this capital is being directed at startups, which wasn't the case maybe a few years ago. And finally, we have access to ideas, which is a critical component because you cannot become a really successful startup ecosystem if you just do copycats of companies that exist in Silicon Valley. So more and more, there's original ideas that are coming out of London and many other European cities as well, and really transforming their industries and disrupting their fields. So this is where Campus comes in. Campus is Google's first physical hub for startup anywhere in the world. It's a 7-story building filled with startups where we try to help foster this ecosystem. And a lot of the examples that I'm going to give from now on are based on my experience with Campus, and you can see it as a microcosm of a startup ecosystem. So someone in Silicon Valley who you may have heard of, Paul Graham, he's the founder of Y Combinator. How many of you know of Y Combinator? All right, some of you. And Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator. He's very, very bullish on Silicon Valley, and I actually wanted to take his own thinking about Silicon Valley and kind of like point it against him or for Europe and explain what are the top 3 things that make successful startup ecosystems. So Paul Graham says that you need to have environment, you need to have numbers, and you need to have chance. And we're going to talk about each one of these. So let's start with environment. I divide environment into 2. The first one is the physical environment. You know, like startups need to be in a place where they are able to collaborate, create, disrupt, hack, etc. And the physical environment has a lot to do with it. This is a picture of the message board at campus, and we clear this message board every week, and 24 hours later, it looks like this again. So this is just an example of what a physical environment can bring you. We also actually host a lot of events, and we solved a physical problem. People wanted to meet up. People wanted to have startup events and share knowledge and network and connect, but real estate is really expensive in London. Event places were charging a lot, so we provided free physical space for events. And to give you an example, in 2013, we had 1,133 events at campus alone. So physical is a big part of environment, brings people together. The other part of environment is actually what I would call a spiritual environment. And I'm not talking about anything religious, but this is creating an environment of learning, collaboration, pay it forward. And this is not something that you should take for granted, because if you try to create a startup environment in a very corporate setting, you know, it would be very hard. But if you go to a co-working space or a coffee shop where a lot of startups work from, it is kind of like taken for granted. So creating this right spiritual environment is very important, and the way that we do this at campus is through a lot of the programs that we run, and you have some examples here on the screen. For example, we organize a program called Google Office Hours, where every week Googlers come to campus to mentor startups one-on-one. Every week we change the topic. It could be video, mobile, product management. We actually invited once all the founders that were acquired by Google to give advice to the founders of today. And we had to stop the registrations after 100 people signed up because we just didn't have enough room to host everyone. But to give you a scale of how much of this we're doing, in 2013, we hosted 1,000 mentorship sessions between Googlers and startups. All of this is, of course, free. Another example of the spiritual environment is one of my favorite programs, Campus for Moms. The second London class of Campus for Moms graduated yesterday. It's an accelerator program where we bring about 35 moms, either on maternity leave or pregnant, that are interested in startups and want to launch a startup, and we give them the best possible advice you can get over the course of 2 months. And at the end of this process, they launch a startup. And they may have been from a completely different industry, but now that they're on maternity leave, they have time, and they have the right mindset to get out of their day-to-day work, and it's really inspiring. It's the only time that I spoke on stage and someone pulled my pants. And I'm talking about the babies, not the moms. And it all doesn't have to be about work. Like creating the right spiritual environment or environment of collaboration and community can also be fun. And this is a picture from something that's very close to my heart. It's called Tech Bikers, and it's a non-for-profit organization that I formed with members of the startup community in London, where we actually cycle from Paris to London and to raise money for charity. And as a result of this effort, hundreds of people have been involved, thousands of people have donated. We started 4 schools, 6 libraries, and gave scholarships to 3,000 girls in India and Nepal to get access to education. So we all feel very fortunate to have access to the opportunities we do because we're in tech and we're in the forefront of the industry, but we also think about others, and this brings us together. So you can meet people on networking events 50 times and you'll never make a connection, but spend 3 days cycling with them and you'll be friends for life. So if you want to join, the next one is actually happening September 19th to 21st. So community and environment, that's really important. Number 2 is numbers. And by numbers, I mainly mean density of network. Okay, if you are an entrepreneur in a city of butchers or lawyers or cobblers, pick your profession, but not entrepreneurs, good luck to you. It's going to be really tough. You need to be surrounded by like-minded people that are going through the same things, and it's not about commiserating, it's about being inspired. asking people for help. It's about finding people that are going through the same things and can help change the course of your company because they know exactly what you're going through. So entrepreneurs need density of network, or startup ecosystems need density of network to be successful. This is really well modeled in Silicon Valley. You can also see it in Tel Aviv, where if you throw a stone, you're going to hit an entrepreneur. This wasn't the case in London, and I think this is where really Campus came in, because we were able to consolidate a lot of the activity that was happening in very disparate places and create this essentially density where you had all this smart, ambitious, talented people coming together, speaking to each other, and collaborating. We get this density by embracing one of Google's principles of innovation, which is openness. So we believe that open will win. Some of you probably recognize these logos, and this is actually something that's very common at Google. We share everything internally in the company, and a lot of the tools that we create are open source. And when I describe Campus to people, I usually say that if there was an equivalent between real estate on one hand and software on the other hand, Campus would be this open source building. It's like a physical operating system for entrepreneurs where you can just take the code and modify it. You want to host an event, be my guest. Everyone can apply and host their event at Campus. If you decide to bring a flying car or a goat and focus on agri-tech, as long as it helps the startup ecosystem and entrepreneurs, we'll host it for free. Anyone can sign up to be a member of Campus, etc. And this openness essentially helped us get this density of network. You can see some of the numbers from one of our recent surveys on the screen. Most of these numbers are really grown since then, but just to give you an idea, we asked about 6 months ago startups at Campus, like, have you raised money? How is it going for you? And they told us, like 275 of them said that they raised 34 million pounds. If you do the math, that's a lot of like small rounds of 50, 100, etc. There's, at that point, there were 22,000 members registered to work from Campus. Now there's over 30,000. But I wanted to share some of these numbers with you to give you an idea of the scale and what I mean by density. Of course, this is transferable to your startup ecosystem according to the number of people. London has 11 million people working in it every day. So if you're in a city of 2 million people, it's going to be hard to reach the same level of density, but you can find your own equivalent. An interesting stat from here is the cups of coffee. I actually went to the cafe operators in the basement of Campus, and I asked them, like, how many cups of coffee did you sell this year, in the first year of Campus? And they said 90,000. And for me, it was a huge number because, we're not a coffee shop that's open to the street. It's only a community of entrepreneurs that's in the building. You have to be registered to work from there. And I think that there's a correlation between innovation and coffee, and we have pretty damn good coffee. So there you go. So this density of network is very important. Wait, I think there's a presentation challenge. Everything looks good there? Yeah? Hold on one second. Yeah, it looks good. We'll just keep going. I know this by heart. If you guys can figure it out, let me know. So, there we go. Thank you. So we talked about the first element, which is community or environment, the second element, which is numbers or density, and the third element is chance or serendipity. And this is actually the magic dust that makes some startups succeed while others fail. So what causes this serendipity? What is the secret? What makes some of these startups so successful? There's no secret. The secret is bringing a bunch of people together on a regular basis to collaborate, work, network, and help each other and have this like pay-it-forward mentality. This is a picture taken from the cafe at Campus, and it's a very typical picture because it's full, and it's always full. There's 30,000 people that are registered to work from the cafe every day, and what you're going to see on a typical day is people from many different countries around the world sitting there and working, but also asking the other person next to them, what are you working on? How's it going? do you mind looking at my product and giving me feedback? The interesting fact is that I think Campus is a little bit of a modern Babylon Tower. In the last survey we've done, which was in March, we got about 1,500 respondents, and we asked people, what country are you from? And we got responses from 98 countries. So I think this is also very important to create this diversity amongst your community that's, it can be diversity in age, in sex, in nationality, you name it, like in background, but I think it's really important. So you create this serendipity by giving people the ability to interact in a meaningful way, and it can be by giving them a stage to perform on and like introduce their ideas. It can be by giving them opportunities to network. It can be by giving them mentorship opportunities and feedback at the right time. And I think it's your responsibility in your own startup ecosystem to participate and to give so you are able to create this sort of serendipity. So where does it all fit in? Why is Google doing this, and how does it all connect to Google? So not so long ago, actually 15 years ago, these two guys started Google in the garage. This is an actual picture from the garage. It was Susan Wojcicki's garage, who's today running YouTube. And this is really summarizes what we are as a company. I think that although Google has grown a lot, it's still a founder-led startup. It's like the two guys in the garage. That's the spirit of how the company is run in many ways, and it's in our DNA to help startups. And that's why about 2 years ago, we started Google for Entrepreneurs, which is a team at Google that is responsible for helping support startup ecosystems. So usually the way that I explain it is if Google Ventures invest in startups for equity, we invest in startup ecosystems. We help startup ecosystems thrive. And this is not something that's only focused on London. We have over 60 efforts active in 110 countries. In some cases, we work with partners to help us spread the mission and help spread entrepreneurship. You may have heard of some of our partners, like Startup Weekend or Startup Grind. We also understand the importance of physical space. So in some places, we have created campuses, like Campus London and Campus Tel Aviv. Also today, we announced that we're going to launch a campus in Poland, in Warsaw. You heard it here first. It was announced about an hour ago. And in other places, we've partnered with physical spaces, including this place. Who recognizes the logo? Okay, some of you. This is called Numa in Paris. It's a really exciting space that used to be called Silicon Sentier, and we see it. They're very close partners of ours. It's powered by Google for Entrepreneurs, and we see it also like as a local Campus London in Paris. So going back to the original message, I think that we should think about the bridges and not the valleys, and how we connect better between our ecosystems. And one more. Thank you. Yes. Google for Entrepreneurs also helps create content. So even if you're in a city where our partners are not operating, first of all, I encourage you to get involved. Startup Weekend is a wonderful organization that essentially helps people get access to entrepreneurship or experience entrepreneurship in 54-hour events that take place over a weekend, where a bunch of strangers come together and pitch startup ideas, and then they spend the weekend building startups. And there's a really interesting study by the Kauffman Institute that came out about 6 months ago that talks about if entrepreneurship is something you're born with or if it can be taught. And actually what the study concluded is that you're not born with it, and it's not something that you're necessarily taught, but it's contagious. You're 30% more likely to become an entrepreneur if you know an entrepreneur, if you've experienced it yourself. So I highly recommend getting involved with organizations like Startup Weekend, etc. Another way to engage with Google for Entrepreneurs is online. You have a lot of videos to help you, etc., that we've done over the years. And we also often host hangouts with leading entrepreneurs and thought leaders in the startup world to help bring their lessons to you. So please check us out at google.com/entrepreneurs. Another way that we engage with startups as Google, this is a question I get a lot, is through our developer relations team. Developer relations team is essentially helping people that are choosing to build on Google tools be the most successful that they can be. So if you're developing on Android, these people can help you get featured, give you access to the latest features, etc. They also organize events like Google I/O that's coming up later this month. And I really love this motto that they have, which is keep calm in RTFM. Anyone knows what RTFM means? Read the fantastic manual. I changed your F. Everything that I've said, you don't have to take it from me. You're more than welcome to come and visit us at campus and join and connect with the community and even host an event for your community at campus. All you have to do is go to campuslondon.com and the info is there. Just register and it will get you access. So, in conclusion, oops. People in Silicon Valley may think that they have something in the water, and I don't think it's true. But what we need to remember is that maybe they have something in the water, but you guys definitely have much better wine, and it's also essential for innovation. And I think we should really concentrate on building those bridges. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take any questions on everything you wanted to know about Google startups, Google Ventures, Google for Entrepreneurs, if there's any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you. And we do have time for questions, so if you want to ask them in French, I could play the role of
that'd be great.
Translating.
I'll try to answer in French. You always need one brave one, you know, that it unlocks value. No? There's one.
Oh, wait. Do you have someone with a mic, or should I go? No, no shouting.
Sur la question en français, je voudrais savoir donc à quel niveau d'implication le campus peut soutenir les entrepreneurs et quel est le lien que fait campus avec Google Venture, par exemple. So, for example, what's the link between the level of support that you provide to the tech companies and the kind of push that you lead towards Google Venture?
Of course. So Google Ventures is, thank you for the question, brave. I actually understood the French part, which is great. Google Ventures is Google's venture capital arm, and it's a financial fund that invests in startups for equity. At the moment, they're only active in the US, not because they don't think that European startups or startups outside of the US can be innovative, but because they have a slightly different model that's very hands-on, and they need to prove the model before they expand globally. Google for Entrepreneurs and Campus, they help with everything else but funding. So connecting you with mentors, connecting you even with investors. So we do something called investor office hours, where we bring the top venture capitalists and angels in London, and we also bring the startups from campus who are looking for this sort of advice, and we let them ask questions. We help them connect informally, which in many cases it's a barrier for entrepreneurs. You don't know how to reach the VCs or if you're ready, so we give you this access. In terms of what Google Ventures does, or what Google Ventures does that's differently, I highly encourage you to check it out, because I think it's a really cool new model of venture capital. But instead of just investing the money, I know a lot of venture capitalists will say that it's smart money and you invest and you have networks. So you have all of that, but you also have access to Google. So whether it's help with recruiting or help with designers, there's design partners that work with you on the product. These are people that came from Google. Or by connecting you to, like Google's infrastructure. So if you're working on anything big data related, you could run your company on Google's infrastructure, which is, I think, a really exciting proposition. But I think it's a question of when, not if. And I hope that we'll have some news to share with you very shortly. all the way up.
Hello, my name is Ludovic. So I'm also a founder of a startup just out from an incubator, Belgium incubator, and I was wondering what are the conditions to enter such a campus made by Google.
Oh, so anyone can register. Any entrepreneur can register to work from campus, and you can actually work from the cafe for free. So you don't need permission from me. No one will approve your application. You just say, I'm an entrepreneur. We give you a code. You bring this code to campus, and we give you a physical card, and that's it. You're good to go. Now, if you want to rent a desk, we have a partner that runs a co-working space for us. The partner is called Tech Hub, and they go through applications where they prioritize essentially teams building products. So if you're a startup, you're building products. If you are a lawyer, you're providing services, which is a little bit different. We also have accelerators at campus. So every 3 months, we bring a new accelerator with a slightly different flavor. And accelerators have their own application process. And we have Seed Camp, which you may be familiar with, which has its own application process. But I highly encourage applying, because even if you get accepted, it doesn't mean that you have to take it, and it's good to have the option, right? It's a fantastic network, great mentorship, etc.
Okay, nice. And when is the next one then?
I think the next one is Seed Camp Week London, and it's coming up in July, if I'm not mistaken, but just check the Seed Camp blog. I've been a mentor at Seed Camp for many years before actually opening campus. So campus opened in 2012, and I've been a mentor at Seed Camp since 2008. And I can tell you that it's a really great network. It's a really good experience for the entrepreneur. But again, it's an option. So even if you get accepted, you don't necessarily have to take it. Just good to know if you get accepted.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Pas d'autres questions? A priori, non. When are you leaving?
I'm going to be in Paris tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm here tonight.
So you're here tonight in case some shy people have other questions.
And you can also tweet at me at ediggs, E-D-I-G-G-S. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Merci. Merci beaucoup.